Here with Tel, the Everyday Life Lesson podcast. I always wait a few seconds for the clock to tick down. Sometimes I say for the talk to click down, or I always mess that up. Especially when I do Tel, the Everyday Life Lesson podcast. It is indeed a special episode because, as you know, our regular one, our weekly normal one, we closed that down, but I still keep Tel open for the interviews, which hopefully I do more and more. So that's one thing, and then the other thing is it's always the same with Jean. He always messes up something. So let's put myself in screen. Yeah, he always messes up something, and this time I messed up the time completely. Right. So most of you actually did not even notice it, but I put the time on 11:30 p.m. Right, and that's probably my Dutch background. It's always a little bit of a hassle. Is it PM, AM, and all that kind of stuff, right? So, but I hope you can you find us anyhow while we're here on Facebook Live, on YouTube, and on Twitter. So if you join us now, then just give me a little shout out. Before we start and before I introduce, of course, my guest of today. And my guest of today is Elian Haan. And this becomes always a little bit strange when you are Dutch and you say a Dutch name. Do you use a little bit English pronunciation, which actually I don't know what that exactly is. But anyhow, so we'll see how that is, right? This is probably, we'll start actually the count new. This is season one of Tell the Everyday, season three and episode one of the Everyday Life Lesson podcast. So before we go on, as always, don't forget to subscribe either on Facebook or on YouTube. That would be so much appreciated. The YouTube channel is relatively new, so we would love to have you there. And you can see all the old episodes there too as well. And then before we actually get her into the show, let me introduce first my guest, Elian Haan. She is also like me from the Netherlands. You probably will hear that because we probably share some Dutch stories. We have more connections, but we'll talk about that too. There's too much actually to put in this little square to tell about her, but just I threw in a couple of things. She's an author of a new book, and I hope she, introduces her book to us. She is a TV host. She's an international motivational speaker. She's a presenter. What drew me mostly to her is actually she's a specialist in pain management and anxiety intervention. In a more popular words to say, actually, she is an excellent life coach and is doing that for a lot of years. I don't want to give away her age, but it is for a long time. You wouldn't say it if you see her, but for a long time. So without further ado, since we started 5 minutes late, or if you go with me in the wrong time, we are about 12 hours too early. Let's get in the show, Elian Haan, and here she is. Welcome, Elian. It's so good to see you here in the show. We had a little bit of a pre-talk. For the people to know, and that's actually it. So we just always have at Tel just a conversation about all kind of things that comes by, and I have some questions just in case we are short of things to talk about.
Good morning, or good afternoon, should I say. Thank you so much for having me on your podcast. I'm very excited to be here and share with you. So, yes, we did chat a little bit in Dutch, and you can probably hear my accent as well. It gives it away. I still have many, many words that I do not pronounce correctly, or the Texas way, I should say, but I'm trying, y'all. So that's definitely something I've learned over the last couple of years. Very excited to be here. Thank
Yeah,
you. Thank you.
welcome,
Thank you.
welcome, welcome. Well, I gave up on the Texan on the Texans, y'all, and I'm fixing to go and all that kind of stuff. But I must say, Alian, if I travel outside outside Texas, so a little bit more to the northern states, for some reason people say, hey, we can hear you're foreign, but we can also hear that you have kind of a southern accent. So we'll take that over after a few years.
Yeah,
You can help that. I don't think I have that, but you never know. Maybe it's because we. And I talk fast, so it cannot be the slow talk. And
and
so,
we've definitely both been here a long time. So I think we just kind of pick up on those things around us and
yeah.
I noticed that when I'm traveling, I kind of become a little bit of a chameleon. If I go to another area, then another part of the country, then I like to pick it up right there, what they're doing, right?
Yeah,
So that's fun too.
yeah. So how long are you in the States?
Since 1995 officially, so that was the year that I came to the States. Then I was just briefly married. Um, the gentleman I was looking for him, we didn't come together. I was looking for him because he had left a few months earlier. We
Mm-hmm.
had we had been very we were just newlyweds, very much so. But I had high expectations of living somewhere else in the world for a while, and that was the idea both that we had. Um, I tried to find him, couldn't find him. When I found him, he went back the next day to Amsterdam, which was at that moment a very traumatic experience. I think my higher power, God wanted me here. It took a long time for me to understand that and to come to this place where I am right now. And that is just, it's my happy place. I
Cool.
love it here. I
Cool.
love it.
Yeah, we are practically neighbors, right? I mean, just
Yeah,
for people so it's just for people in the Dallas area. We call everything Dallas here, even if you don't even live. There are like three cities between me and actually Dallas. But it's
yeah.
if you're from the US, that's quite common, right? So because no one knows where Ellen is, and Ellen is and we think it's a small city. But if you're from the Netherlands, we are over 100,000 people. That is quite a big city in the Netherlands. But for us, that's
Exactly.
like that's nothing.
Yeah.
So where are you at?
Well, I am south of Dallas, so I live at Cedar Creek Lake,
Oh
which
yeah,
is about an hour away. Yeah,
yeah,
which is
yeah,
an
I know
hour
what
away
it
from
is.
you if you're in the middle. I came from the North Dallas Addison area,
Yeah,
and when my son was little, I moved away from Dallas. I went through a bad time with with money and work and finances, and Dallas was just eating me up,
yeah,
literally. And
yeah,
so I just kind of moved away a little bit to refresh and reset. And for me, that was very, very, very good. I liked it, and I missed Dallas very much in the beginning, not to be in the middle of the city. But when you get really old, like I am, then you just don't care anymore about the shopping experience. So, yeah, and it's quiet, it's nice, so I like that, and
yes,
I
yeah.
feel well.
Yeah, I never. I mean, just for a brief moment, maybe but I never lived actually in Dallas or even Edison. So those are the more busier cities here. You know,
Yeah,
if you're from New York, I mean, anyhow, it's all nothing.
yeah,
But there we are. But
exactly.
in our, Dallas is just hugely spread out.
Yeah.
But I love the area. Anyhow, let's go on to a couple of things that just caught my interest, and I forgot actually how we got in contact. We know each other, from each other for probably for a long time because Elian actually studied. Is that the right way to say it? You studied
Yeah, I
with
went to
my
school with your sister. Yeah,
sister dance, and
yeah,
we have that in common. So I'm sure that dance will be one of the topics, and maybe we need to do more than one show with you. But what caught me actually is, of course, is the book first of all, right?
mm,
You just
thank you.
published a
Yeah,
book. Maybe you want to start with that, and then let's make sure. And I'll put it also in the show notes, as that is called, and in the comments that that you can find a link where to get Elian's book.
absolutely.
So it is it if you read the summary, and I did the short and long one, then I kind of know who your audience is, but it goes a little bit all over the place what the book is. But from the summary, so I would like to know if you have to say it in like one sentence. If I read your book, what will I get out of it?
It is a memoir
Mm-hmm.
about my life, and it comes to a life coach. It ends in a life coaching book with the lessons I've learned.
Okay.
So basically, it's a book about what the heck was I thinking, and where am I now, and what did I do with that information that was thrown at me, those curveballs. So yes, it is a life lessons book through my story, basically. And And I would say that, yes, the summary is a little, because I said it's for women because I work with women a lot that are my age, 40, 50, all the way up. But yeah, so I work with women a lot that try to find themselves. I work in the addiction field a lot with people that have just kind of like lost their grip on life. And what
Yeah,
stood out to me is if I write and if I share my stories. That's how it started. People always said, "Why don't you write that down?" And I'm like, "Well, I don't know. I write every day. Writing was somehow was a skill, from a tool for me, and a skill set to work with anxiety or work through pain. But I put it all together, and I kind of had that book always there, like it's gonna be a book someday. But I
cool.
I didn't think that I had the courage to do so.
Well, proud of you.
And
Yeah.
yeah,
No, it's
and
super. Congratulations with that. Most people know that I'm a best-selling, I can may add, author myself. So, but I know how long that idea, at least was true for me. That doesn't have to be true for you. In my head, I was yelling for years, I'm going to write a book and publish a book. But at some point in time, I thought, now I have to do it because everyone thinks I'm an idiot if I if I'm not doing it
yeah, that
right
was
now. So that was
yeah,
one of the motivations, to be honest,
yeah,
to do it. But the other one is, I think there is, you have that too, by the way. But we both have a little bit of a message, and authors have that. We have some vanity. We want it to be read. Let's be honest. Otherwise,
mhm,
you would not publish a book.
sure.
But we also feel that we have a message. Whether it's a message that lands on the audience that we want, have it landed on, we don't know that. So you said it's women over 50. The part over 50 fits me, but the women not so much. Is it still a book that I should read?
I tell you something funny.
Yeah.
It says finding your way back from expectations. So
Hmm.
that is the subtitle that
I,
I
li-
will
I like that.
go in a little bit. Yeah.
Yeah, please.
Well, 60 miles from Neiman's, actually, it came about because when I was still in Dallas, I was for years dancing around, I should say, in the film business
Mm-hmm.
and in the commercial and acting and on stage and so forth, which was part of my other wanting to be on stage, kind of feel always I wanted to be there. It had to do with dance, it had to do with theater. And I had a wonderful, amazing coach. And at some point, I went to her every Sunday. We had hours of class. She was an amazing acting coach. And she went through this separation with me when I started moving away from Dallas. And I came less and less. I lost myself for a while. I just went through a hard time, and I came less and less to her classes. And Lee was saying, "Well, I don't get it. You just moved 60 miles away from Neiman's, 60 miles away from Dallas, 60 miles from restaurants." So she kept just kind of like lovingly screaming at me, "Why did you do that?" Now, Lee passed away years ago, and I wanted to dedicate this book and this title to her. I
Nice.
literally live 60 miles away from demons. But now, recently, I had a wonderful gentleman calling me, and he is a mentor. And he said, "Elian, I just read your book. I read it in 2 days. It's an easy read. It has pictures and big letters." I said, "It's an easy read." But he said, you have to take that out, that for women, because I enjoyed it so much. I couldn't
Hmm.
put it down. I loved your story, your adventures, your journey, and what you did with it. So
Yeah.
I'm just, yeah, I'm trying to figure that out if I need to take that out and just say for men, for women, for everybody
Yeah.
that wants to
Yeah.
read, because it's just really,
Yeah.
a nice and
Yeah.
funny story. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I used to work for a publishing house, but we always have a little bit. It's always good to niche down, to say
Yeah.
specifically for who you wrote, and then you will always people like this man or me. And but if you truly feel it's for a broader audience, by all means, I think you
Yeah.
change it. But thank you for
Thank you.
clarifying the title because that was definitely one of my questions because it's a little bit of a strange title actually,
Yeah.
specifically. But thank you for clarifying that, and I'm sorry to hear that your one of the big influences in your life actually passed away.
She was.
If you come to, we will not tell our age, guys, on here and on
We
podcast.
don't.
We don't.
Everybody
But
knows. I
if
always
you
tell everyone.
arrive at our age, then yeah, you have people that unfortunately, has left your life.
Yeah,
It's part of life.
yeah.
We know it doesn't mean that it doesn't hurt, but it's definitely something that you learn to accept in it. So you said, it is about your life, at least the big first part of the book, and then you go into how you use your story to
Yes,
coach people. Is that a good way of translating it? And I would like to
absolutely.
get into that principle, not only for us, but also for
Yeah.
my audience who are always very interested in coaching in itself, that they understand how important that is to use your own story and that you can use it for the good of other people or just for launching your own life in a different direction.
It was very important for me to share my story. I always call that sharing is caring, the whole hashtag thing.
Yeah.
I landed years ago, I landed in the rehab business. So I had a dance studio, fitness studio that I was operating for years. Even when I moved away from Dallas, in Dallas, I was teaching in the big gyms. In those days, um, I came from the dance world, and then I moved to America, and I was just on the verge of getting introduced to this whole Jane Fonda, Richard Simmons thing,
Yeah.
and they became my idols. I just wanted to be like them because they had, ankle warmers and sneakers with a little heel and really high cut outfits. And here I was in black and pink mostly,
Mm-hmm.
although with your sister we did some great show tunes too and all that stuff and glitter and beautiful costumes and show life um, show world performances, right? Musical and dance, but that aerobics was just for me the way to go because I was struggling with my body image. I was struggling with myself a lot, with how do I get there. The dance world was pretty tough on me in a sense of, well, you just, you can't really perform forever. So I thought, I love to teach. I was always a born teacher. Teachers are a little bossy, and life coaches are bossy. They kind of want to help other people, and that's just inherent. That's just there.
Yeah.
So I thought if I go teach that aerobics, that is a good way of keeping it afloat. It's very popular. So just to jump forwards, I moved into this aerobic industry, and I did it all. I mean, all the formats that you can ever come up with. It was step, it was even calisthenics. It was all called fitness and aerobics and calisthenics, and now it's all called wellness, right? Doesn't matter anymore. It's all well-being and wellness. But I was really into the fitness where you had to do the six pack and work in the gyms. So I started working in the Dallas industry in the fitness centers, and for years did that. Moved into my own studio, had many classes offered there, went more to the introspective side of it, less six pack and jumping jacks, but more um, yoga, meditation, what does it do for you? Got to learn got to know myself better. And then got invited to work at an addiction rehab facility, inpatient, 30 to 90 days. And I've been there the last 7.5 years. And that was really for me the catalyst to bring it all together
Nice. Good story.
because
Yeah.
the sharing. Yeah.
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 Yeah, it's a beautiful story. It's a little bit, to be honest, if I may be direct, it's a little bit on the learning from a teaching perspective, right? Would you mind also what that did for you personally, what your transformation personally was, going from almost like an outside glitter glamorous type of way of doing your dance to way more, that there is. I can see it, I can hear it. There must be a transformation that has worked in you to be able to show up in this way for the people that you serve now. Would you mind going into that?
Absolutely. So that has to do with my subtitle.
Yeah.
Finding your way back from others' expectations.
Yeah.
I lost my mom when I was in my 20s, my dad shortly after.
Mm-hmm.
And I didn't have a very good relationship with my sister. We were the only two kids at that point. Not so much, not a not good relationship. It was more like another relationship. We really were wider, further away in age, and I moved away. I was the one that moved away. I wanted to have that American adventure as well, and so I stayed kind of on the surface for years, but I felt that I did that because, and I didn't know I was doing that,
Mm-hmm.
to please other people. So I lived a lot into that frame of expectation, which is, I see that and I saw that for my patients and clients, and really started recognizing that in myself through my work with them. For instance, you are in your 20s and you try to please your parents and you study or you go to do that job.
Yep.
And
Yep.
you get married and you have kids
Yeah.
and you buy that house and you do everything right according to the expectations from the outside world. And then we go, raise the kids and bam, bam, bam. So career, kids, and then we are by ourselves. And all of a sudden, and I went through the same thing, looking at my clients and saying, "Wow, I went through the same thing." So going back into my story, I really started just kind of nibbling down on my own stuff too, and say, "Wow, Elian, that was not very well handled.
Yeah.
You didn't do anything with your own trauma, and you tell everybody else
Yeah.
what to do
Beautiful.
constantly."
And
So
then,
there, yeah. So there was my
yeah.
VA moment,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah. Yeah, no, beautiful story. So this is what I want to say to our listeners today is, we often get that question, right? So what is a life coach? And life coach became, I mean, we are a little bit less young. So, and in life coaching, even before the word life coaching was actually so popular as it
Yeah,
right now, you know. But what I want to say here is, yes, of course, we have an education behind us. Yes, and but it doesn't really matter because you can call your life coach yourself tomorrow, and you are one. Um, but of course we have that, but I think the and then I want to hear your perspective. I think the major differences between life coaches, they are more with you in it because they have not the same, because every story is unique, but we have a similar comparable type of experience, and through that experience we don't teach you, we guide you more, we are next to you with things. It's different than a therapist, and I know really good therapists who are also coaches, by the way, and they know how to change those roles really well. So but we're not sitting across of you and or put you on a couch like in the old
yeah,
Freudian principles. um, we don't do that. We let you do the talking, and so that it's a that's a there's a good difference. And if you one of my friends, Dawn Truel, and I have her on the show a few times, had her already. She is a therapist and psychologist, and we talk about these differences and why it's necessary. It's not a competitive, why it's necessary from one to the other. Give me your perspective, because you have seen both sides. You've seen therapists. You're an amazing life coach yourself.
yeah.
Um, so why didn't you go in the therapy route?
I am not a therapist. I at work I carry the title counselor, and
Mm-hmm.
that is just in the addiction rehab facility
Yeah.
because of the work I do. But what I do, what I am certified in I am a life coach, and I am a trauma informed care practitioner.
Mm-hmm.
And because I started like that, so in the rehab facility with my patients, I started working through the somatic way, right? Really caring about their bodies and
Yep.
caring about how trauma stays in your body and manifests. So that way, I kind of counsel people through their physical and mental um,
Interesting.
journey, right? Their emotions. So that approach, that's where it started. And then
Interesting.
I had to kind of struggle a little bit at work with the therapist not really taking the counselors um,
Advice. Yeah.
serious. My
Yep.
work was being taken very serious and appreciated and well received. But it was the title kind of thing, and I thought, well, I don't want to be a therapist because I'm not so very good at all that paperwork that comes with it and all that documentation that comes with it. And although I do a lot of documentation already every day, I didn't really want to go that route, and including all these annual things, right? And
Yeah.
that state. And So I was looking at more, indeed, just like you said, and you said that perfectly, more being in the moment with somebody, sharing, like, this is what I did with it. But not, I don't want to never necessarily go back to your trauma. So I assume when you come to me that you do have a backpack full of, I do as well. But where are we right now, and how can we move through? And I always say, move through and move with your trauma. I suppose that you don't need me for that, but how can we move with that and put it somewhere
Yeah.
and go forwards into a very constructive way, right?
Mm.
My patients, I can see them everywhere. I can receive them on Zoom. I love to be one on one. I want to smell you, feel you, be there with you, touch you. One of those touchy feely honey, honey bunnies kind of people. And that makes people feel good. But it's possible to do it all over. So it went to that. Of course, also COVID helped a little bit, which in the beginning I thought was horrible. Setting up your whole home studio and all this stuff. But now it's just like that. And I'm grateful for it because as a
Yeah.
motivational speaker, it became broader and I can reach my patients everywhere, my clients everywhere. And sometimes my patients, I call them from treatment, stay with me as clients. So
Yeah.
they follow me afterwards as well. But I want to move through and I want to move forward. And I do a lot of homework. So I don't tell you what to do, but I will kind of make you think with some questions every week, a little assignment, that kind
Yeah.
of thing.
Yeah.
You don't
Cool.
even have to bring it back, but
Yeah. Yeah.
I like to kind of make people aware of the
Yeah.
same things that I had to do to myself.
Yeah,
Does
cool,
that make
cool,
sense?
cool. Yeah, no, it's really nicely explained, and I hope people take that away. Also, that is, personally, and I mean, it is also some of the parts that play in you because I had it for a while when I started to work as a life coach. And like, man, people might think that I don't have the qualification or stuff like that because what is it, to be honest, what is it worth to be a certified life coach if the institute themselves are the ones that certify, that also give the education. So there's a lot for us, for a long way for us to go as life coaches to get that same, at least from an
Level.
academic point of view, that same recognition. But
Correct.
you are academically trained and schooled as I am, but so we don't have a PhD behind our name, and psychologists always have, if they want to work in that field, they have a medical responsibility too, which I take equally as serious. When we work with the health of people,
Yes.
we take it very serious. In all areas, there's malpractice, and in all areas, there's growth too. At the time, there were psychology started to come up. People were not trained as psychologists either, and definitely not educated because Freud started to educate himself and other people as well. People forget that, and
Yeah.
that is probably less than 100 years. Well, that's about 100 years ago. It's not that old,
Well
right?
said. Yeah.
So what
Yeah.
you did and what I did is, and it's actually not to circumvent any any route that we did, but we both wrote books, and we both became well read. I became a bestseller. I hope that for you too, and maybe you already have that status. I don't know, but I hope that for you too. And then, strangely enough, what happened to me, Elian, and I hope it happens to you too, is I was actually talking to my therapist, and once in a while we got in contact because he's my mentor too. And I asked him for advice, and I said, Jean, I'm definitely going to give you some advice. I'm definitely going to give you some direction and help because you asked for it. But I said I'm struggling a little bit because I talked to a specialist here. You are the specialist in the field, and I said, really, you think that way? And I mean, we talk, one of the fields that Elian and I work with is that people are struggling with self worth.
Yeah.
And that compliment actually pointed out to me that I did not have the right self worth, even in my own field. Tell me a little bit about that. Tell
I
me
think
your
that
struggle about how you went through that.
definitely because it wasn't dance the same, and it was, the struggle to try to fit in
Yeah,
and belong. That's what
yeah,
we all want. We're all just looking
yeah,
for that belonging. We're looking for that respect, that recognition, and that was a struggle for me so much. And I was just always feeling that I was never. And then it goes way back all the way to my dad. I was never good enough. And so that brings in your career, in your professional life, that brings this huge just kind of like circle around you of feeling the imposter syndrome,
Yes.
you know, every day, like I am good, but I'm not the therapist. But everybody comes to me and they
Yeah.
want to see me actually, but I'm not the therapist. So what do I have?
Yeah.
And so I just couldn't put my finger on it. And I always thought, you know, but I don't have that degree. I don't have, you know, why do we what they want me at the table? Why is it?
Yeah.
And it took me a really long time, just like you said, to have somebody else tell me, you know, and actually start believing it. It's not the fact that everybody can tell you that.
Yeah.
You have to believe it, that you go like, oh, okay. I really actually know what I'm talking about, and I've actually lived
Yeah.
it. So I should start applying this a little bit more and really start helping people from a more secure sense of self,
Yeah.
right? The
Yeah.
bigger growing into the self-esteem was big for me as well. Absolutely, the same story.
Cool. Cool.
We have so
Yeah.
much, we have so much
Yeah.
alike when it comes
Cool.
to that.
Yeah. Thank you for sharing that, and I definitely want to hear the audience of Tell is a little bit coming from that point. Also, in my audience, Elian, that's why I bring this topic up. So I train coaches to be coaches, right? I don't have a certification program, but I have certain techniques and certain areas where I think I can coach really well. I typically coach people into what I call a passion-driven business, or or I just coach people who are abused. Everyone knows that. But if I train coaches, it is actually to set up their own coaching practice. And they all struggle with this. They all say, hey, am I good enough or not? I said, what do I need to be? I said, no, you need yourself, and you need to be authentic to your own story, and don't oversell it either. That's the story you have. You went through it, uh, and um, and that's good enough. People don't ask you to don't ever give medical advice because you're not trained to do it and you're not licensed to do it. So don't be your home psychologist either, right? It's just do what you need to do. So using your story to help people is tremendously powerful, and it's as old as mankind is. That's the oldest way of teaching. Yeah,
Yeah,
I did a research myself once at a company called Mallenberg, and that goes back in the 80s, to be
yeah,
honest, seriously true. And and
yeah,
I did
yeah.
a research is what is the most favorable teacher? What is the most, what teacher, as you as high school students, which one do you like the most? Now can you guess what answer came out of that? It's
The
a
one
little.
that went through it, the yeah, storytelling.
Yeah, the number one was the storytelling, and it happened to often be equated with the history teacher. And I was working for promoting a history series of book, but I mean, I didn't have to steer that. It was really a normal, well done research. But it could also be the math teacher. It could be anyone. But knowing how to tell your story is incredibly good. So I think your book is testimony of that, starting with a bio, which actually I did too. Strangely
Yeah,
enough,
yeah,
in my
yeah,
book, it's only one chapter, and I always say, that's actually the marketing fluff,
yeah,
because but it draws people in the emotion.
yeah.
So that's really good.
It's
Another thing that I
hmm,
saw in your book is the word holistic, and I'm very drawn to that from a very young age on. Is when I give you my perspective, and then I'll ask you your perspective. So I think it's actually wrong. So that I'm not shy to give my opinion. The whole talk about body, mind, it's just we don't have a good term for it, but there is no separation of body and mind. That is a modality that has been taken too far. I see definitely some problems where people suffer from a separation of body and mind. Why people are not healthy anymore? Either they have a tendency to not be healthy anymore in their mind or in their body, in a worst case both. So once you see that you're one organism, as a body, as mind, as one, just by that things change already. Just understanding that what happens, for the lack of better spot to point at, your
right.
mind here has an influence here and the other way around. Tell me your vision about it. You talked about somatic, you
I
talked about these things
totally
already.
agree. Yeah,
Explain me in your word what that means, holistic.
I totally agree with you in the sense that it's been taken way out of context.
Yeah.
Contest. It's not a contest. A contest, but it started to come up in my work a lot because when I started working with patients and clients that suffer from trauma, anxiety, and depression, they go into their journey of healing through talk therapy. Talk therapy, talk therapy, talk therapy. What we left out, and AA is a good example for that. Alcoholics Anonymous, they left that whole physical part out because I don't think that in the early 1900s, it was such a problem that you had to move your body. We moved our bodies. And now we are in generations, the last couple of decades, of people not moving at all and not being aware of anything and everything. So even with PTSD, I work with VA, with veterans, us patients, that all that stuff that goes on here is also manifesting in your body and even comes out way later. So people come to me and came to me because I work through pain management. I'm a pain management specialist. That's somatic stuff there. So I can see where people hold their pain in their body. So I started working through a method that I call funny, in a funny way, put your sexy back on, or actually an approach of why don't we take care of the exterior as well, or first even, so that when you feel good physically and you're a little bit better in shape, you feel a little bit more flexible, you have a range of motion coming back, you feel physically fitter, then you kind of put your sexy back on, whatever that means for you. And that way, if you look at yourself in the mirror in the morning, that light bulb goes off and feels a little bit better. So you are emotionally and mentally just a lot more guarded. You have a lot more ammunition to go into that world, for your daily stressors, your anxiety, and so forth. So I always call that one of the major underestimated things in healing overall, that yeah, you gotta, even if you put your yellow t-shirt on and your fun hat and your green bag or your crazy shoes, people will even approach you that way and say, and one major thing I left out, of course, is posture correction. You and me know everything about that. I am just an advocate for posture correction, especially nowadays. But we sit too much, we have all that pain, bam, come out, and people approach you different. And so immediately that kind of like, goes into that mindset of, oh,
Cool.
they think I'm looking good, right? So it
Yeah.
helps a bit.
Yeah.
Yeah,
No.
doesn't
Yeah. Cool.
it doesn't take care of the problems, but it helps a lot. And that was kind of
Yeah.
like for years left out.
Yeah.
So that way we kind of did the marketing for that. And in my company, the marketing was mind, body, spirit,
Yeah.
holistic
Cool.
approach.
I
Yeah.
like, I like that a lot. Yeah. So, and I write about it, definitely too about that. So, but also I do know that you and I have, pretty strong connection with what we believe. And this podcast by no mean people is to make you believe what I believe. But I'm not shy to say that I'm a Christian,
Oh, I like it.
and
Yeah.
so everyone knows that. But if you have another opinion about that, that's great. But the thing that I want to say always here is there are a couple of things when I started to be drawn to that is that I just didn't understand. And one of the things that's there, just to bring it also to the spiritual side of the body mind, because also the spirit is just in us. It's just all the same thing. We're all the same. It's just all the same mesh. Not mesh, but mesh. And it is, we are here put on earth with a body and a spirit, right? It is one. We're not separated, right? So what I see and this is where I get a little bit dangerous here in Texas, right? If we talk too much about that, when we die, our spirit moves on, that's all great. And I hope that it's all true. And I probably believe that it's all true. But we have to understand that we live here on earth with this body and spirit. And if there is a God, my God wants us to live here as good as we possibly can and not be occupied what maybe happen later when our body dies. So in church, I hear that a lot. I talk about it in church too, by the way, saying, man, your first responsibility is right here with what you have right here. So we can talk about spirit all the time, but Jesus said, after me, something greater will come, and that spirit is put in your body. Yeah, does that make sense?
Mhm.
Yeah,
Yeah,
so
absolutely. Yeah.
I make that super powerful. I was talking just at a conference for domestic violence, and I talked about spirituality too. They asked me about it. I said, we need to stop, floating above the earth and think we're psychic and stuff like that. we
Yeah,
are
yeah, yeah,
just,
yeah.
we are physical human beings
We're right
here,
here. Yeah.
and we don't hear. I mean, so there are even big pastors like Joseph Prince. They say, we have to understand this is all temporary. We don't know what that means, temporary.
We
Yeah,
should do it right now, but that has to do with my vision of being in the now
yeah,
and not constantly being worried about.
exactly.
So my whole approach of what I learned over the years, and
Yeah,
I did have to do a lot of self-study, but my whole thing that felt good with me and that felt good with me was that I am in the now. I need to stay here, and my purpose. I found my purpose, which was, the need to share and heal people, but my purpose was, I'm very down to earth. I'm very grounded. My purpose was just to, share joy, share energy, share laughter, share love, and
yeah,
do it right now in the moment,
yeah,
because I couldn't really go too far into that whole, and
yeah,
that's that whole holistic new age thing went there too, right? It was all new agey.
yeah,
And I did the Taoist thing, and I did the the Tao Dao, and I did the Buddha, and I did I
yeah.
did the and
I did it. I
it's
did it
right
all.
here,
I
it's right
spent. I
here. My
spent.
message
Yeah.
is right here.
Also, also dangerous to say. I even spent a year long in a mosque.
But
Seriously true. Just to find the truth. What I just really found is that the Christian God is my God, and I think there's only one God, but you can think whatever you want. That is for me not a problem at all. On the contrary, because maybe God shows in your life in a different way than he showed himself to me, and that is not up to me to decide, right? That is up to him to decide. um, but what I want to say with that is that so-called search of the truth can take you completely out of the now. And I'm not talking about the popular Eckhart Tolle talk about the now. I'm talking about, it's good to think about the future. We as life coaches point you that you need to have a focus on what's coming. But
the
at the
plan.
same time, you need to live that now. It is what you apply now that will bring you there. So I always say the future Jean can do this, but the current Jean cannot do it yet. So let's work on the current Jean to make sure that he can do what the future Jean wants to do.
For
Um,
learning and growing. Yeah,
and growing and stuff like
true.
that. So
Yeah,
the other thing about time and body is also, as a trauma patient myself, the body does not know time. Once
correct.
you get triggered in your body, and you see that with veterans too, it's like they are right there in the moment when the trauma happened. That goes so fast. So we in therapy, although I cannot call myself a therapist, of course, but we in therapy, we say the body does not know time. Yeah,
Correct.
completely you can use that to your advantage. And so there's something almost magical going on. When I see it happening in front of my face, it's always magical, I think. You know.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, so that's the dance connection. How are we doing on time? We're doing not so good on time because we're almost through the time.
No way. You can go
Yeah. Yes
yeah,
way.
you can go
Yes way.
forever. Yeah.
Time
Yeah.
goes super fast. We
I
started a
wanted to
little bit.
come back on something that you said, which was funny about storytelling. Um, that was one of the drives for me to, or a big motivator for me to share in the book as well, because I didn't have, since my parents passed away, I didn't have feedback. Right, I couldn't ask about my past. I didn't have a lot of family in that sense,
Yeah.
left in the sense of, hey, or you have an opa and an oma, grandpa, grandmother, that can tell you all the stories. And for me, that was not exactly there. And so I realized that several times, especially, also with kids and so forth. So when I started to write, I wrote for my son very much so in a sense of, what if something, I was an older mom. So, what if something happens to me, and or now he's so in the moment, he's living his life in his 20s, 30s, it's all about you. I did the same thing. And I didn't even, when I was young, go to my mom and say, no, mom, tell me what you did with that traumatic event in your life, and what did you really do with it? That's not the way kids approach you. They're busy living their life till they are at that moment that they're turning around and ask. But I couldn't do that. So I wanted to write a lot of things down for my son in a very, just throw it out there, in a
Storytelling.
very blunt, honest,
Way.
emotional, way of, this is what happened. And I was not good at it, or I did it because it was trauma. It was a decision that came out of my trauma. I didn't realize it. Or I made the wrong decisions because I wanted to belong, and I wanted to be seen, and I wanted to be accepted, and I wanted to be loved. So those kind of things, when you write it down, you write it also for somebody. So that storytelling does not just go to my patients, but it also, and clients, but it also goes to direct family,
Yeah, it
right?
does. It does.
Because we don't do that anymore, and I don't think the younger generation is very aware of of telling and asking and story, because they're just, and they have Google,
Yeah,
and you have Google and you don't have to think for yourself. So it's, or make a story or tell a story or explain it. So that way, I think I wanted to go back there in that
nice.
moment of,
It's nice. It's nice. Nice goal. Yeah, my family had a pretty hard time. In some people didn't want to touch my book. There were actually some people who want to try to stop me publishing the book because it tells quite a bit about our
Oh,
family.
yeah,
Well, I didn't write the book for my family anyhow. I did.
yeah,
I wrote the book for generations and see that my story is definitely not unique.
yeah,
Okay, that maybe the coaching part that I write in it is unique, but the story is not unique. Unfortunately, I wish it was unique.
yeah,
It just, but a lot of people, yeah, that's what it is. But everyone who did not know me or knew me kind of more like what you said, from people that actually not so close to you, they think, wow, what an amazing story is that, right? What an amazing story is that.
yeah,
How did you survive that? I had questions like, why do you still believe in God when you go through something like that? I said, actually, I think I went
yeah,
through it because I believed in God, but
yeah,
I also know, and I respect that too, by the way. I also meet a lot of people who actually fell from their beliefs, so to speak, as we
yeah.
say in the Netherlands, right? I'm not sure if that's an English expression to fall off
Yeah,
your belief, but I don't think it is.
I know
But,
exactly what you're saying. Yeah,
but I think that is what we say in the Netherlands. How funny is that?
yeah,
Um, so yeah, thank you for sharing that. My kids, I don't think. Well, maybe my daughter now, but we said, maybe you're a little bit too young to read that about your dad, because I don't only talk about, oh, I'm a sub story, and I've been abused. With the abuse came also an addiction to other things, and with the abuse also comes things like, you want to portray your perpetrator, in me that went on for 5 years, as only a bad person. That it was not only bad. There were definitely moments that I enjoyed it too. How strange is that, right? And it was really hard for me to say that out loud.
yeah,
And but because I victimized myself a little bit by only saying, hey, he was so bad and this has all happened to me.
yeah.
That does not mean, by the way, people who are listening to me from a years back when, that it was my fault. I was freaking 7 years old. There's nothing that is my fault.
Absolutely.
But
Exactly.
I was still a human being with
Yeah.
human emotions triggered in a
Feeling,
certain way,
body.
feelings,
Yeah.
and you have to be really honest to your emotions and give them a place, and what I call bring them into the light. Then you can deal with them, right? So, because that's a shameful thing. And so to find really strong other bodily connection. Yeah, I did things that I probably shouldn't have done, but I did
Yeah.
it anyhow. So, and to make that book complete, I felt I had to write it too, because that's definitely something that trauma patients, they find a way out. They,
That
yeah,
is exactly, thank you for sharing, Joanna, but that's exactly also what I mean that happens when our body leaves us, and when that disconnect between mind, body, spirit finds
yeah,
place.
yeah,
leave the spirit out at some point. I'm just overthinking and ruminating all the time. My body is not even mine because
exactly.
I don't recognize, don't want to
Or you
recognize,
don't
don't
care.
care,
Yeah.
all that.
In my
Yeah,
case, I didn't care what someone did to my body anymore.
exactly.
And so that came out, and that sounds really, really, really bad. But some people thought I was a cute Indo guy. So
Yeah.
you want it, you can have it.
Yeah.
And that's horrible. And people need to understand that these mechanisms, when you get through child abuse specifically, is so deep in you, and
Yes.
it can be healed. It definitely can. It did in my case, and that's for where I started out. So anyhow, thank you for not only sharing your story, by the way, but also being very open about your own story, and how you use that actually to help other people.
Thank you.
That's our own therapy in a way too. let's be
All,
honest.
all the time, all the
Let's
time.
be
I tell
honest. Yeah,
people always, thank you so much for being with me because it gives right back, right?
it
It's
does.
it's really how Mother Teresa was always so happy and smiling, but yeah, I am too because if people give straight back and you give all love and hugs and people give that back, then that feels good.
Oh,
So that is
definitely.
just a two-way street. I call that heel to heel.
Yeah, definitely, definitely,
Anyway,
definitely.
yeah,
Therefore, I mean, in the old-fashioned way, and in the old-fashioned way of where we were, when there were talking therapists, as you called them, talking psychologists, that is a little bit going away too. I mean,
yeah,
that industry, for the lack of better word, that field has of course taken a completely different route in the last 25 years. Beautiful, beautiful people there too. But I must unfortunately say that I meet still people saying, after all these years, I need something else in my life. So, and
hmm
that could very well be you or me. Who knows, right?
yeah.
If I give you, for your final thoughts, what would you leave the audience with before we just do a blunt commercial for your book?
Well, great. I mean, I love to let you know that what I get most out of just being on a speaking show, on a podcast or a speaking event, is that people say, I love what you do with your energy and with your love. And that is for me important. I love to share love. I think it's very important. And I think that keeps us connected. I think that is important right now because we have so many stressors coming at us daily anyway, even if you're very good at it. Those are the daily stressors that are there, and there's a lot going on. So I think we need to hold hands. I think we need to share the love, and I do that with a lot of energy. And I don't know how in the world I've still got all that energy, but I got a lot of energy, so I love it. Yeah,
That's
and
good.
I
I
love to
can, I
spread that
can,
around.
I
Spread
can
that around.
definitely relate to that. I always have a lot of energy. I get up with it, and it just keep going. I
It's as
can, I,
dancers, we like to move, we like to
I,
bounce, and we
I,
like to dance
I
through
can't
life.
help it. Yeah, that's good. I can see it and I can feel it. Well, thank you so much to showing up for our audience.
Thank you.
Please, Elian's book is available on Amazon.com. And I also will share. Elian's website, which is very easy. It's just her first and last name connected together, Elian Haan, right, and
Thank
.com. And she is available for, of course, her amazing coaching, but also for speaking. I will all say that in the show notes, but I want to make sure that people have that and can find you. It always will be available on both of my podcasts, and it's everywhere, Spotify and what have you not. And then, of
you.
course, here on Facebook, I will say it in the comments too. So thank you for being on my show here. Maybe we can ask you back another time. That would be awesome. I think there are so many things we still need to cover.
Likewise,
I am
absolutely.
amazed that we
Love
didn't
to share it.
spend the whole time talking about dance, because that typically happens when you put dances together. But we actually stayed pretty good on topic. I must
There you
I
go.
must say
Yeah.
that. And just this is not for you guys, but it's just for the technical side. Since Sean is always technical, a challenge here. Let's call back into the Zoom after this, so we can have a little after talk if you want to. And then in the
Love it.
meantime, I will say goodbye to the people here on Zoom. No, not on Zoom, on my show. Right? Thank you so much, and I hope to see you soon, Elian. Well,
Thank you so much.
in a few. All right, people. Thank you. That was. Don't you think that was interesting? I thought it was interesting, and it felt so. It felt almost like at home. I mean, I had my coffee here, which is very Dutch, by the way. To have, we drink a lot of coffee. Dutch people, unless they go completely in the healthy route, they stop drinking coffee. But I don't think I ever went there. There was a time that I only did 1 cup of coffee, but lately I'm back on 3 cup of coffee. I don't know if that's much. It's not as much as I used to do when I was working in corporate, by the way. But it has nothing to do with the show. I thought it was an amazing person to meet. Elian Haan. Strangely enough, we live close, and we never actually went to coffee and apple pie together. That's a Dutch thing, right? So we're going to do that really soon. So thank you guys for listening. As always, don't forget to just go to YouTube and connect with us there or on Facebook. And so that was it. Elian Haan, and hope to see you back soon in the next episode of Tell. All right.